Facebook, see if it's going live.
Mm-hmm.
You're live.
We are live.
Oh, let me share it on
Right.
as well.
Like, let me share this thing. Let me make
Yeah.
sure everybody see us, man.
Yeah, cause like if it's on Facebook, I could share it on my thing to
We live on Facebook. We live on
Content
YouTube.
Factory.
You can check to see if we live on YouTube. I know we live on Facebook. You know, what's up, everyone? RJD be in the building.
Yes.
We just getting everything started here.
Yes, okay, I see it. Hey.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and share it to our I'm gonna share it to my page as well. And Tammy, if you could check on your side to make sure audio is all good. But welcome, RJD. Welcome to Choose to Create Live. Today we are going to be talking about, you know, a little bit of business law stuff, intellectual property, just going into like some of the things that we go through as creatives and just in collaboration and just protecting our intellectual property and the content that we create for our clients. So just having a candid conversation with my guy over here, Garry. So welcome to Choose to Create Live. This is the first official one that we're going to be kicking off with.
Oh, nice. Yes.
You know what I mean? And I have my guest here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Garry Louima. I'm a corporate attorney on my law firm, First Step Legal Solutions. We're based here in South Florida. I work with business owners, investors, entrepreneurs, creatives, influencers. I touch a little bit of music, like a pinky toe in there. But for the most part, anybody trying to get after this money, I'm the guy for it. I'm the first step to get that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what's up, man. So I want to kind of go into, I know we're going to be talking about intellectual law and stuff like that, but I want to keep it, you know, conversational. And so that way, you know, when it comes to building a business, doing entrepreneurship, you're in business law, right? And I was having a conversation with one of the chamber members I just joined recently.
Nice.
And we was having a conversation and we was talking about community and impact and things like that. And like as an entrepreneur, I feel like that's one of the main driving forces behind any entrepreneur is making a community impact. Because whether you're selling shirts or, you know, whatever service that you provide, and you're providing that to a community to make an impact in that community.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I would like to know, when did you know that you was gonna, like, when was that moment where you was like, damn, I really want to make an impact in the community and law was gonna be the way that I'll be able to do that?
Wow. Very early on, way before law school, even. Like my father was an entrepreneur. He owned his own lawn service business for about 26 years, I want to say. That's where I got my first job there as well. I got uncles who are entrepreneurs too. And then growing up, just seeing like, you know, business ownership is such an option. And going into law school, I knew I wanted to do corporate law because I wanted to help people like my father, like people in my family, you know, expand and grow and protect their business. One of the most shaping experiences I had, my last semester in law school, I was in bankruptcy court. So I was working under 3 judges and seeing businesses go bankrupt, right? So I'm like looking at these files, like, how did you get here? Bad contracts, bad business decisions. Sometimes it's the economy, it's out of their hands, bad financing, and so many other different factors. I'm like, if they had an attorney as they were going through these things, they would have been in much better shape. And then it hit me even harder. Y'all going bankrupt. I see family businesses go bankrupt. You know, partners who were college roommates, dorm mates, friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, they going bankrupt through this business. And I'm like, that could have been us. That really could have been my father. It really doesn't take much to damage a business in that way if you don't have things in place. So I realized, you know, after law school, like, okay, look, if I'm going to do my own thing, it's going to be in this particular sector because we don't have it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody talks about black business spending black dollars, X, Y, and Z. But that's one thing. If we're giving these businesses money, but we're not protecting them legally, what is the longevity? What is the sustainability for these businesses? You know, so that's the community piece right there. So I love working with entrepreneurs, love working with family businesses, and that's the community that I serve. I have clients outside of that demographic, but that's my passion right there.
Okay, that's dope, man.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's important, right? So like in your industry as a law, as a black lawyer in business law, like, you know, how many, like that's not a common thing that you will see on a day-to-day basis. So just trailblazing in that sense. So that way, like the way that I kind of look at it is like Robin Hood. You know what I mean? like really going out there trailblazing for myself, my family, my community, right? In the area of entrepreneurship, in the area of in business or building, understanding business, right? Because even if we know other entrepreneurs, it's not like they'll sit down and talk to us about the finances, the accounting, how to go about, you know, properly structuring things. So it's like kind of going out there and trailblazing for the community as like Robin Hood, instead of like stealing goods. You out there getting the knowledge and getting the experience, right? And then being able to come back to the community and give back that experience and knowledge, and make it accessible, right? Make it something that's like, you know, it's not somebody that they, you know, that's not approachable in a sense. You feel what I'm saying? So that's kind of like how I always look at it as well. It's like, yo, I'm Robin Hood in this situation where it's like, I don't know that many entrepreneurs that's coming from a place like me. You feel what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and make that happen. And so like when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's the reason why I wanted to really talk about this topic as far as like with Choose to Create. You know, I'm in production and we do creative things, and most of the people that I work with are creatives. So with the first us going live, I wanted to bring in you as a business lawyer, because I feel like as an entrepreneur, like us just being a great photographer or a great video production or videographer or whatever like that, that's only one aspect of actually being a full-on entrepreneur.
That's true.
You know, it's other parts of it where it's like business development, you know, operations, you know, developing SOPs and things like that. And the mix of those three things is what actually make the entrepreneur, 100%. Not just the like, you know, whether you're a lawyer, you know, you might be a really good lawyer, but that don't mean that you may be a really good entrepreneur.
It's still a business. Exactly. That's the part that hit me kind of hard. You know, I'm doing all the legal stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, this is the business. I'm a business owner. I forgot that I was a business owner. You go to school to be an attorney, you filing cases, you arguing things, you drafting documents. And you're like, oh yeah, I do. This is a business. You know, so you tend to forget. Or even when you're passionate about anything, like what you do as far as content creation, production, helping strategic marketing plans, and all those different intricate things you do for businesses. Sometimes we get locked into our passion, what we're doing, or realize it's a business, right? And the business lifeblood is money. End of the day, one thing that produces money is an asset, right? So when we talk about assets, we talk about intellectual property. You know what I'm saying? So once you have that thing could be producing you money over and over and over and over again. So we gotta know how to protect that asset. That's the huge piece right there.
Yeah. Nah, 100%, man. I know you're not an accountant and everything like that, but you did mention about how you've seen some of these companies go bankrupt and stuff like that, in the financial aspect, right? So in financing and stuff like that, and you're an entrepreneur as well. This is not legal advice.
This is not legal advice. Big disclaimer. You know, if you want legal advice, you got to call me up and we could talk about your specific situation. Anything I talk about in terms of like legal or legalities is an overview in general. But if you have a specific situation, you might want to sit down and consult me with that. You know.
Yeah. What he said. What he said. You dig? So like what we talking about is just our experience as entrepreneurs. You feel what I'm saying? And that's what I want that conversation to be about, right?
Okay, cool.
Our experience as entrepreneurs. So like in the sense of you know, we could talk from the very beginning of like forming that entity, right? What was some of the things that you had to consider when you went to forming your business entity? And let's just talk about that.
Number one, we got a family member. We all don't like him. He comes around Easter time, and when he says it's time to eat, it's time to eat. His name is Uncle Sam. Okay, he come around April. You better have that money. You better have that money. Or if you're a corporation, you coming in March. You get an extension, whatever it is. But you better have that money. So the first thing to look at is tax wise. Do I do an LLC or do I do a corporation? If I have somebody with me, are we doing a partnership or are we doing a corporation? Even within that corporation, is it S corp or is it a C corp? We're not going through the intricacies of each one, but each one of those things are taxed differently, right? And each one of those things are more advantageous for different types of businesses. A small example is like, let's say you had a record label and you're looking at an S corp, but for an S corporation, only up to 25% of your income can be passive, right? So if you're a record label, most of your income is passive through streams and different things like that. You're gonna get blown up come tax time. You might want to pick something else, right? Or even if you have a real estate company, you go on S corp as well. That may not be the best situation, especially if you're selling properties, depreciation, on different things. You might want a partnership with that, or you might want a corporation, depending on what type of real estate company you want to go after. So there's so many things that to consider, but we know off rip, we have to pay Uncle Sam. That's just the number one thing. That's your primary thing, because if you don't pay that, they're gonna put you in handcuffs, right? So we got to pay that number one. So we find a way to mitigate your tax liability, tax mitigation strategies, right? You can sit down with myself. I have a tax attorney. I have accountants, CPAs that I work with as well. Once we know what your tax mitigation strategies are, we ahead of the game, right? If we know we have to pay it and we learn how to pay less of it, then we already making more profit before you even open your doors off rip. You know, so that's the biggest thing. So knowing what entity to form dictates how you're going to be taxed. Once we know how you're going to be taxed, and we could kind of fill it out, you look on any tax form, 1040, 1065, 1120, 1120S, any of those numbers, you're going to see the first thing they're going to ask you, where'd you get your money from? They're going to say income, right? Well, I got this much, I made this much, I made this. Next thing, they're going to say, okay, how did you spend your money? These are called deductions. Anything reasonably related to to furthering your business for that business purpose related to the business, you most likely can deduct it, right? So if we know we can limit how much we're getting taxed, if we spend our money a particular way, we'll pay less taxes. We can now create a budget, right? So for the year, we're putting X amount in advertising. I think you gave me a general rule about 10% of your gross should be in advertising. We're going to X amounts on accountants and lawyers, X amount on uniforms, X amount on cell phones, X amount on gas, travel, food, rent, utilities, so on and so forth. If you make a budget, now we know how to allocate our money. Now we are entering what we call tax efficiency. We're paying less amount of taxes based on our structure. We know where to put our money based on our accountant, based on all these different things. So now the profits really start coming in. Now we really structuring things up to move correctly. You know what I'm saying? That's how you do it. That's how you do it. It don't get no better than that.
He makes it sound so easy, but he went really deep.
Yeah.
He went really deep with a lot of that information. And I appreciate that, you know what I mean? Because like I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of young, old, whatever, in between everything. You feel what I'm saying? And that's one of the first things I always advise them to do is, like, before starting, just, you know, have a conversation with a business lawyer or accountant, you know, before forming that that company or that entity, because, you know, a consultation with, like, a business lawyer is, like, you know, probably like $300 or, you know, $400. Well, I don't know your rates. I'm not speaking about Garry rates, but I'm just saying in the industry is like it's anywhere between $200 and $400, not more than that. And that $200 and $400 will save you so much money in the long run when you're forming your company, because it's a lot of different things that you need to consider before even doing that. Or sitting down with an accountant is the same thing. It could cost you $200 just to sit down with an accountant, and you could really, you know, map out how you want to form your entity, and then you know, from there you could just develop, you know, like your budgets and how you want to go about things from.
You know what's beautiful about that? Sitting down with a lawyer and an accountant, yes, we know the game, we're going to give it to you. We're going to structure it. We're saving a whole bunch of money because you're going to be entrepreneur for your whole life. We're saving you incalculable amount of money. If you just structure it the right way to begin with, right? If things change in the future, which they usually don't, but if they do, we'll adjust. But if you start in the beginning good, then you're good. But let me tell you about the beautiful thing about spending that money with an accountant or an attorney, right? Is tax deductible too.
Yeah.
You can write that off too.
Mm-hmm.
So if the reason that they do that is because, not to get too deep into tax, but tax is social engineering. They want you to spend your money a particular way, right, to move the economy. That's the whole point of tax, right? They want the economy to keep going. They want the government to keep going, right? So if you're spending money in the economy in a particular way, they reward you for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't, they punish you for it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you learn how to spend it in a way where they're going to reward you, carrot versus a stick, you're going to get the carrots. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be in a better situation, and we could really move up your company that way. Even today, I had a conversation with somebody who does commercial lighting, right? So your Christmas lights, your Halloween lights, you go downtown, you see all those lights.
Mm-hmm.
He does all that good stuff. He said, oh, I put in some money to develop my own trees, my own Christmas trees, my own light bulbs, and all these different things. He's been around the industry so much. He's like, I might as well get my own product. I said, it sounded like you did a lot of research and development. He said, yeah, there's tax credits for that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I didn't know that. So I connected him with the accountant that I work with, Jennifer Metellus of Beyond Accounting. And they're going to get it together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there's money in things that you're doing. So they're trying to give you money to further your business. The 99.99% of businesses in America are small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They keep saying small, you know what I'm saying? But we are the backbone of this country.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many advantages out there for you if you understand the tax game altogether.
Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
for sure. So
Yeah.
he knows some, you know, he knows some.
Yeah.
Let's since that you mentioned and creatives, like all of my video production guys out there, Choose to Create. I know y'all come here for video production and things like that, but when we talk about video production, that's only one hat of being an entrepreneur, because a lot of every videographer or every photographer that I ever met all want to have their own business.
Yeah.
All want to create their own business. So actually being able to create that great video is just one aspect of that entrepreneurship. That's right? True. So always remember, now you know how to make that video. Now you got to develop a SOP, a standard operating procedure, to be able to duplicate and make that content more efficiently. So you could teach somebody else on how to do it, so you could grow your company, right? Yeah. And then from there you have the business development. That's when, you know, you're developing the different packages, putting a price on how much it costs, what's the profit margins and all that, how to market it, how to get it in front of the right people, developing customer profiles, things like that. So I always look at entrepreneurship, me as an entrepreneur, that at any given moment, I'm thinking about all three. I'm thinking about how to produce the best images. Yeah. You know, I'm thinking about how to be more efficient as a photographer. And I'm also thinking about how can I then package my services, basically add value to the market, and then get it to the people that need my services the most, right? So that's why I feel like it's so important for us to have these different types of conversations and things like that. But I do want to go into something that you did mention, which was deductibles, right? Yeah. So I'm no accountant. I'm just telling you, we talking from experience here. Yeah. That's all, you know what I mean? Living off of experience. Yeah. So from deductibles now, it's super important. Like, you always win by having a bookkeeper and having a CPA working with you, because at the end of the year, when you want to make bigger, when you get other investors to be involved with what you got going on, they want to see what you've been able. Is your company even profitable? Yeah. Are you guys even making any money? Yeah. How are you spending that money? And what's it? You know, all of those different things. And I remember earlier on, before I got into the game, where a lot of people would like try to max out their deductibles where their business is in the red, so that way they don't have to pay taxes. For me, I didn't see the sense in that, because it wouldn't show the government, or it wouldn't show the bank, or whoever that I'm looking, even a partner, it wouldn't show them that, hey, we're actually a profitable company. Like, we do have a lot of expenses, so these are the deductibles, but at the end of the year, we are a profit. We're in the black. Yeah. You know, and the black is just basically, we're not in the red. The opposite. The opposite of being in the red. You want to be in the black, you don't want to be in the red. And so I always wanted to keep everything that we're doing, whether we had years where we were in the red and legitimately in the red. But my goal was always to be in the black, because then, you know, if we was able to consistently do that, then we could show that, hey, we have a system that works, and you could invest in it. You know. So can you talk a little bit about where this is just how you feel about it when it comes to like people wanting to just like throw their company all the way in the red year after year, year after year, year after year. And would you feel like that's a smart strategy, or do you like just kind of just talk to me about how do you feel about that?
It depends on what the business is. Like if you're starting up, you're getting a whole bunch of stuff together, write as much off as possible, because like that, those are actual startup costs. You know what I'm saying? As long as it's legitimately related to the business, you know, and it's for the purpose of that business, then yeah, you should do it, as long as you're within the confines of the law. Now, when it comes, it all depends on strategy, right? Depending on your tax structure. If you have a tax structure where you're allowed to become an employee of your own business, and you're paying yourself a solid salary, and then you still have deductions and you're in the red, then the business is in the red, but you yourself, you've profited from it, right? So either whether you're taking your partnership distributions, your escrow distributions, dividends, or ownership draws, however you want to call it, you're taking money from the business and you're okay, then that's just what it is. Now, as far as the business, a lot of times, again, it depends on strategy. Depending on what you're gonna do, you want to show that you're making gross income, right? But in some situations, they want to see that you're profitable. If you're getting investors, right? So investors are okay. We're paying for all these things, but when do we get money back? Like, because you're getting a salary, you're paying for this, for flights, for this, for food, for this. When do we get money back? We don't see that. If you're going to get a loan, they want to look at that as well. Okay, you're making a lot of money, but you're spending a lot of money. How are you going to pay this loan back? You know what I'm saying? So it gets to strategy, and that's where an accountant would step in and see, okay, what is our best situation? If you are legitimately writing off a lot of expenses that relate to your business and you need that to continue forward, talk to an accountant. They'll break it down and see what is it you got to do. But in my opinion, it really just does depend. Depends what the strategy is, where we are in business, what are our goals. If we're talking about bringing in investors, then I would create a structure to help to diversify that investor's investment altogether. So like having a holding company and different subsidiaries under it, right, that do different functions, that might be more attractive to an investor as opposed to a company that does one particular thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's so many different strategies with that. We can go on and on with that, but it all depends, man. Just make sure that the numbers are making sense for you. And the most beautiful thing about business, or most parts of business, is numbers. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 - 1 is 1. That's not going to change in France, California, Australia. That's just what it is. So if the numbers are adding up to where you need them to be and is all legitimate and legal and above board, then and that strategy works, then it works, right? And if not, we come up with a new strategy and attack it that way.
Okay, perfect. I'm keep moving the conversation along, man. Keep moving the conversation along. Now let's talk about partnerships, strategic partnerships. We did talk about second shooters on productions and things like that. But I want to get into that after this point. So let's talk about a little bit about partnerships, a partnership business structure. That's when 2 or more people come into a business and file that business together, and a percentage of the entity is owned by like say Rockefeller, you know how they had 30, you know, Dame Dash had 30%, Jay-Z had 30%, Biggs had 30%, and then so that's a format of a partnership. And then if one person, like let's say Jay-Z, want to buy out one of the partners, then he'll buy out and get the equity in more percentage of that said company, right? And then so that's partnerships and forming a company. That's when 2 or more individuals are forming an entity together, right? So filing that, and going through that whole process with your accountant and your business lawyer, filing that entity together. And then it's another thing that as far as like in our industry, as far as like in production, a lot of things that happen is more of subcontracting or strategic partnerships, where it's one video production,
Yeah.
right? So we just had a production the other day, right? It's one company that's bringing in, that's one entity,
Yeah.
and then to fulfill on a project,
I
you will
see.
have multiple entities. Like you'll have, sometimes you have 3 different strategic partners or subcontractors or contractors working on one project.
Yes.
So I mean, we got the business lawyer here, so I'm just asking you questions.
Yeah,
you know
yeah. I'm here with. I'm following along.
I'm
Yeah, you broke it down pretty well. You might want to come on this side.
I might know something.
Yeah.
But like, can you just kind of break that down as far as like the decision of going into a partnership rather than going into a strategic partnership when each person has their own entity, but they do work together to fulfill on a project or a contract or whatever.
That's a solid question. So in that situation, we have people coming together to make a partnership. Partnership is the business version of a marriage, right? That's the most intimate business relationship that you can get. So if person A and person B in a partnership, whatever person B does, person A is liable for. Whatever person A does, person B is liable for, and they're both liable for each other. That's joint and several liability, right? So why it might not be a good idea to do partnership with certain people? Because they might not be doing things in the best way, and they're gonna pull you in, right? So as an attorney, when somebody comes to me, hey Gary, man, this person breached the contract, or this happens, I examine the situation, see who's involved. I'm trying to sue everybody. If I could sue their mama, I'll sue their mama. Everybody involved, I want them sued, right? So if you're in a partnership, your partner go off and do something that you don't know about under the name of that partnership, they could pull you into that lawsuit. Whereas a strategic partnership, right, or a strategic alliance, they call it sometimes as well, where company A got this big project, right? But because we got these contacts, right, company A does the videography, company B does the photography, but they're a strategic alliance. Company C does the catering. Company D does the decor. Company E does the sound, so on and so forth. But we are separate entities, right? We're just coming together to get a job done. We're not partners. And if you look at some of my contracts that I draft when it comes to strategic alliances or even joint ventures, it states this does not create a partnership relationship, because partnership is such a high word in business law. We are locked in. That's why you might see lawyers, when they have a law firm, they are partnerships, right? Because if we are in this thing together, we are all in together, and you cannot compete against me. So if you're a lawyer, we do accident cases. You go off and do an accident case on the side, and you don't tell me about it, I can stop you. I can stop that case because you're violating the agreement. You're supposed to tell me. We are bringing in money together, and then we split it. So you can't be competing against me. Whereas in a corporation, an LLC, you might have looser, looser duties of care to compete against each other. But as a partnership, we are really locked in. So a strategic alliance allows you a lot of flexibility, right, to go off and do a bunch of different things. Whereas in a partnership, we're moving lockstep together. You know what I'm saying? So although in both situations, strategic partnership and partnership, we are dividing the pie in however way that we decide to do so. But in a partnership, we have a lot more legal liability to each other, a lot more we call fiduciary duties, duty of care, duty of loyalty with each other. Whereas strategic alliance, I'm just here for right now, and I can get up and go. You know, we could have a bunch of strategic alliances for 100 events, but we never formed a partnership. You know what I'm saying? So that helps me remain flexible. I work with you when I can, when I want, and I could go off and do my own thing without causing any issues. Right? So that's how that looks like.
Yeah, nah, for sure. And then I'm glad you was able to break that down, because there are benefits to strategic alliances and partnerships, because then that allow each person to the flexibility of being able to hit different marketplaces, markets. You know, so this one entity might be just focused in this one market, but this strategic alliance that don't affect them going after a different market.
You're free
you
agent.
know. So that does give more flexibility, and it also allows for each strategic alliance to then implement strategies and things that they want to do. You feel what I'm saying? So it doesn't cause as much friction. You know what I mean? and then you guys come together when it's time to make it.
Whenever we decide to come together, as a partnership, we one piece, one package.
That's
one package.
It. Yep. So there are benefits to those strategic alliances. Like let's say, for instance, as a photographer, I do a lot of headshots, I do a lot of photos. So a great strategic alliance would be a hairstylist, right? A makeup artist.
That's a good one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As for us, even in video production, we do a lot of productions. So a great strategic alliance is any production companies that we could work well with, right? Or someone that does great post-production or does great graphics. So it's a level of respect that do happen, or a certain way to handle that kind of business. So this is where I want to kind of take it into when we was talking about the having if this partner, right, brings, or not partner but strategic partner, right? If this person brings in a project, right? He get hired for a wedding, and then he comes to me and say, hey, I want you to be my second photographer, or I want you to be the videographer on this wedding, right? The project is under his company.
Yes.
Right. This is how I approach it if I'm working with anybody's company, right? Because I have my own company, I have my own entity, but I may work with other companies as well.
Yeah.
So the way that I would approach it is that if I'm working with a client, or if I'm working with someone that needs me to come in to fill a role, I go into that project, or I go into that job wearing their shirt.
Okay, yeah.
Representing their company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody asks me for a business card while I'm on that job, while I'm on that contract, I get their business cards.
And that's the
right?
thing, though, because you move with integrity.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't move with that type of respect. You know what I'm saying? And that's real, because it happens to attorneys all the time. Sometimes there's cases where people call me in like, hey, we're gonna cut this thing up, but I know that you're good in this particular area of law. We need you on the case to just handle this particular thing. You know what I'm saying? And while I'm in the courtroom and everything, I'm like, hey, I do my own stuff, but I'm working with this particular attorney, and we're gonna move under their direction. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa. If I have a project going on, I'm bringing in attorneys, y'all with me. I'm quarterbacking this thing, and as far as whatever's going on, we walk into that courtroom, walk into that negotiation room, we one team. You know what I'm saying? But everybody don't do that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, it's just important to have that conversation, because we collaborate with a lot of different people, right? So it's important to have that conversation of like, hey, because sometimes you might be a young photographer and not know better, right? I've been a young photographer where it's like, I'm working a job for a certain entity or a certain organization, and they say, no, I don't want to work with this organization, I want to hire you directly.
Yeah.
And sometimes being under that type of pressure, and you hungry too at the same time, it's like, all right, I'll give you my card. It's like sometimes you kind of like, but when you don't know, well, now that you know, it's like, hey, no, the right way to go about this is you're gonna have to, I'm working, his job is these photos is his. Like even sometimes when you're working as a second photographer, someone at that event might, it doesn't matter if it's a celebrity, Ludacris, whoever the artist is. If that person comes up to you, because this has happened to me, comes up to you and say, hey, can you send me those images? I would say, no, you have to go to that entity to get those images, right? There's some people that they I've had people come to me and be like, oh, you could take photos and send me those pictures. And I said, sorry, I can't, because I'm working this event for this company. This is not my I'm a photographer. Yeah, this is my gear, but I'm here under I'm here working as a second photographer for this event for this company. Yeah. And I can't send you no images. Now what I could do is I could get you in contact with the owner of that company. And if he wants this, whatever negotiations or whatever you guys choose to go along with, you could do that through him. Yeah. I've had people that even when I bring that to the owner, where he'd be like, all right, well, I don't want to deal with it. You could deal with him however you want. Yeah. But at least I still went to him and be like, hey, bro, 100%. Like this guy, he want me to send him pictures. I don't want to send no pictures to him. Like he should talk to you. And he's like, man, I don't really want to deal with it. You could just send him the pictures. And I'd be like, for me, I feel more comfortable just, hey, man, you handle it, or I just tell him, hey, You know, I can't send you the pictures because it just keeps business good. Because in this industry, we do a lot of collaboration.
Yes.
And you may be working a job. Yeah, you are a photographer and you're, you know, whatever your name, photography, right? Or whatever your name, video production, right? But you're working for another company and this company is taking you on a project. So you're just being mindful of like, hey, if somebody reaches out to me while I'm on that job to work with me, I got to get that person's business card. You feel what I'm saying? Or
you know what's a big point behind all this as well. If you have a primary company and you're the second shooter, the second photographer, who owns that intellectual property that you're producing?
If I'm the second photographer, I'm glad you see. He's getting exactly where I'm trying to go.
I'm with you. I'm following.
You see where I'm going with the conversation.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You see where I'm going with this. So the person that owns that intellectual property is the primary company. Right now, the primary company, I'm no lawyer, but I just might know a thing or two. But I'm just saying the primary company owns the images that I'm creating for that event. Right now, that primary company, they could give me a lease to be able to use that content in my portfolio to represent my you know, what I've created as a representation of my creation. But the ownership of the content, even though it's my photography, my stuff, it goes to the primary company.
You're on the right board. And a small example of that, we got QC, right? Quality Control. They are a record label, right? And they have an artist by the name of Lil Baby. They sign Lil Baby, give him a little change. All right, Lil Baby, look, at these particular times, these particular dates, you're gonna work with these producers and engineers, so on and so forth, right? We're gonna pay for the studio time. We're gonna pay for the hotel room. We're gonna pay for the 6-month Airbnb on South Beach. We're gonna pay for your food. We're gonna pay for the production and the distribution and all that stuff. Who owns the intellectual property? QC. We put it all together to make it work. So, but Lil Baby's creating it, right? Unless it's stated different in his contract. This is what's happening with people talking about their masters and different things. Unless it's stated different in the contract, for the most part, record labels are going to own the intellectual property that's produced by the artist, right? And that's what we call the work for hire, right? We have I don't want to mess up his name. Is it Louis Latimer? I want to say the black man who worked for under Thomas Edison. Same situation. Thomas Edison owns a engineering firm. He has a bunch of engineers working around the clock, right? So when they make something, guess who takes credit for it? Thomas Edison invented over 1,200. Did he? Or did he own the means to get it done? That's a work for hire. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So in the intellectual property space, you see it all the time. People work for pharmaceutical companies. They create the most magnificent pill, medicine, vaccine, you name it. They don't own that. The company owns that because we put you in position. We got the contract for the wedding for you to take the pictures. So what you create, because we put you in position, Lil Baby, scientists, whoever, so on and so forth, we put you in position. We own the thoughts that come out of that. And that's the game. That's the game.
And it's like, that's important to know when you're collaborating with people and working with different industries, you know. And that's why the intellectual property conversation is just so important to know. Like, when you're going into something, now you can go in and own it, right? But you have to understand the responsibilities that go with that as well. It's a certain level of cost that comes with that, right? You got to make sure you're paying for everything, right? So instead of you having the record label paying for the Airbnb on South Beach, you're paying for the Airbnb. Instead of the record label paying for the engineer, you're paying the engineer. Instead of the record label paying for the studio, you're paying for the studio. You got to arrange all of that, and you have to actually, not only is the studio or the record label paying these people, they're making the connections. They're making, you know what, I know your sound. I know this producer over here would be great for you. So they're doing a fitting. They're doing the dot connection. You know, they're not just paying for things. They also have industry understanding, and they also know how to pair you with the right people. So that's an important thing as well. Like, you know, a lot of people may say that, oh, this person is not a producer. What? Yes, he is, because you might be playing the guitar, but I knew that your guitar sound is gonna go perfect with these keys.
And you don't want connected, because like you could have had the idea, but no idea how to contact that person. You know what I'm saying? And there's a interview with Birdman. Birdman had like legendary splits with his distribution team and record labels that he was working with, because he was bringing in so much cash. So he was fronting the money for a lot of different things. He was getting like crazy 80-90% splits. And people were like, how did you do that? Well, I paid it. I paid for it. So they were taking very little risk. You know what I'm saying? That's the game with it. But even with that, once you take that risk though, and you get your foot in the door, you get the equity in that asset that we call intellectual property. There's so much you could do with it.
Yes.
Right. So you gotta think intellectual property as an actual piece of property. It's a thing, right? What can I do with this thing? Imagine a house. Well, if I own a house, I could rent it out for a certain amount of time. In the intellectual property world, we call that licensing, right? So I own this intellectual property. I can license it to somebody for a period of time under these conditions. I still own it, but you could use it for a little bit. I could sell it if I want, right? Here's a big piece people don't know too. I can collateralize it. So if I have a bunch of intellectual property, a bunch of pictures, a bunch of videos, a bunch of songs, I can say this asset is worth X amount of money. And I can go to a bank and say, can I get a loan and use this as collateral for some money? And they were like, yeah, you can do that. And you say, yeah. There's this guy on I forget these interviews I've been watching. This guy, he's an artist. So he makes all these wonderful works of art. He gets an art appraiser to come to it, to appraise it, right? And some of the paintings go for $500, $5,000, $10,000. You get it appraised, right? Then he gets a collateral on it, right? He probably can make some paintings in a couple months worth $200,000 worth of paintings, a bunch of paintings. Get it appraised, get a price for it, get a ticket, whatever documents it, go to a bank. I have $200,000 worth of paintings. Let me get a loan for that amount. He had no intentions of paying that thing back. He's like, why don't you ever pay it back? He's like, because I could paint more pictures. I could paint more pictures. You know what I'm saying? I can make more songs. I can make more videos. I can, you know, but you're the asset. You're the golden goose.
You're the golden goose. And that's the thing that's so important. And that's what I do want to make sure that we have this conversation, because as the painter, if you only focus on the painting aspect of it, or if you only focus on the photography aspect of it, or the baker, you only thinking about just that, and you don't go into understanding the operations or the business development. This conversation is around just developing the business of it, right? The business development of getting into the game of being an entrepreneur is so essential. Not just being a great cook. You know, just because you're a great cook, that don't mean that you could just go out and start a business, right? If you want to be a great cook and you want to be able to operate and serve 100 people, the first thing you got to do is build a SOP to be able to manage that workload, right? And then when you have that SOP, now you need to start developing your business. Business development. So like at all times, it's those three things that's constantly working. It's creating the best product or service. It's creating an SOP for that product and service so you could serve more people or be more efficient with it. And it's developing those the business development aspect of it, where it's like those appraisals, right? Those strategies behind how to use your content, right? You might be creating the content, but then the strategy behind how to leverage the content and the photos that you're making to market your company, to basically show the value of what your company is. Right? And then help other companies as well. You feel what I'm saying? So that business development part is just so essential. And that's kind of like why I wanted to have you here to kind of like kick it off. So that way, you know, I work with with a lot of video production companies and entrepreneurs. I actually work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well, just helping them with the business development aspect. And, you know, it's just important for them to understand that intellectual property, how to protect their assets, but also in collaborations, because we do a lot of collaborations. It's a lot of collaborations that happen. Everybody, we always constantly collaborating. So having an understanding of how to collaborate effectively, and keep those relationships long term, and how to also understand the intellectual property aspect of it, right? So you're getting hired by a primary company. That don't mean that you actually own that.
Exactly.
You feel what I'm saying?
Exactly.
The company that actually was the primary to assemble, that brought in
they're gonna want
the client, owns that. But now that you know that, you could then talk to the primary company and say, hey, how can I go about owning this?
You know what we call that? That's a negotiation.
That's a negotiation.
And you send your lawyer in there, we negotiate. We figure something out in order for you to get a piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? Even if you don't own all of it, if you own a percentage of it, you get the royalties from it. So as they leverage that intellectual property into something else, you can get a piece of that too. You know, and that's the game right there.
Yeah, and that's something that I feel like, you know, young Black men, young entrepreneurs, that's a conversation that need to be had and need to be done, because nobody's in here. Like, you remember we started as entrepreneurs to make an impact in the community.
Yes, first one.
You know, no. I mean, of course, to make money. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're in it just to make money, you're probably not gonna last that long.
The stress is gonna eat you up. And you be like, yeah, this ain't worth it, because the amount of time, effort, and energy, emotional distress, or whatever else it is, and then the people around you doubting you as well, compared to how much you're making when you start off, it ain't worth it.
It ain't.
But long term though, but you got to get there.
You got to get there.
You got to have a bigger star that you're following to get there. One thing I want to bring up too. So we talked about the importance of intellectual property, how to leverage it, and everything of that nature. But I want to just touch on how do you go about staking your claim, right? So we have a contract. It says I own 10%, but how do I further register that I own this, right? So we could break down intellectual property into 4 different parts, right? You got patents, copyright, trademark, and then we got trade secrets. The first 3, patents, copyright, trademark, they get interchanged all the time in regular English, and they should not be, right? So let's detangle that right now. So I do practice trademark law. I don't practice copyrights. I don't practice patents, and I'll give you guys some resources for those as well. As far as patents, you can talk to my guy, Jesse Fenty, one of the best patent attorneys down here. And DC as well. He got an engineering degree. This guy's sharp, you know what I'm saying? He gets things done. But what does a patent protect? Patent protects utility, right? How to utilize something, the function of something, right? So we have a box that it clicks and takes picture. That function is what we're protecting, right? You might even have like a cell phone. Oh, I do have a phone on me, whatever it is. This one little box here probably has hundreds of patents inside of it. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause there's so many functions that it has. You know, so that's what patent does. The next thing is copyright. Copyright protects content on a medium. What does that look like? It protects painting on a canvas, words on a page, footage on film, your voice on an MP3 file, right? Content on a medium, right? That's what it protects, copyright. And with patent, going back to patent, you register that. You can register your patent with the USPTO, right? You can register your copyright with the Copyright Office as well. You could go online and you register these things. You can use an attorney, or if you want to finesse it, you could do it yourself. Highly recommend, especially for patents, that you get an attorney, unless you Terrence Howard and you just know how to get it done. You got like 1 million patents. And then you get into my world, trademark law. Trademark are anything that represents the business. It could be a word, phrase, logo, or design, right? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. You know what I'm saying? The big M, swoosh, check. What's the point of trademark? So that way you know where something comes from, whether you know where a good or service comes from, right? So there's no market confusion, right? So when you see that big M on a hamburger, we know the source of that hamburger is the big clown over there. When you see a crown on that hamburger, we know it's the burger royalty people. You know what I'm saying? Burger King people from there. So that's the source of that. So you can go, you register these things with the federal government, and you can have a public register. I own this, right? So if you don't do that, you do have some rights in there, but it's not the best rights. Perfect example of this is a sad example, more contemporary. My guy Nick Cannon, He had an issue with Viacom. He said, I want to leave. And he left. He's like, I want to leave with Wildin' Out. They're like, yo, you wilding out. He's like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, we trademarked this. How did you trademark it? Because you didn't. You put your show on our platform. We paid all the money. We did the thing, X, Y, and Z. You thank you for developing this into a $1 billion brand and entity on its own, but we own it. And he tried his hardest to get it, but he couldn't have it. That's why he back on Viacom, and that's why the show is still there. But if he was prudent when he started off, if he just gave Garry a call, like, look, I'm starting a show called Wild 'N Out. Hey, you should trademark that. How much that gonna cost? We could have boot, figured out the price, and then you would have owned it. And that is worth billions of dollars right now. But he can't even leave the show because he don't own the name of the show. Now you see him off doing different things, and I bet you he's trademarking those things now, right? Because he learned his lesson. So you got to protect your stuff. Register yourself so that way there's no ambiguity. It's very decisive and clear that I own this piece of intellectual property, right? Even when it comes to copyright, there's get into authorship. You could put a bunch of authors on there, and you could put in those percentages on who owns what. And of course, you could back that up with agreements and different things, right? Just because you produced it, just because you made it, doesn't mean that you outright own it, right? Take the further step, take the next step. Take the first step. I'm gonna give a little wink right there. Take the first step, go ahead and register your intellectual property, get it done. The last thing I'm talking about is trade secrets. You can't register a trade secret. For example, McDonald's, for a long time, they had the Big Mac sauce, right? The secret sauce, they called it, right? We all know it's mayonnaise and $1,000 dressing now. We know this now. But back in the day, we didn't know. It was just this amazing sauce on there. How do you protect that? You protect those things through contracts. The most common contract to protect trade secrets is an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, right? If we sign this contract, we're going to keep everything that we learned about each other, our trade secrets, private. It's not just about recipes, right? So we have a group of creatives working together to put on an event. Your videographer, your caterer, your event coordinator, so on and so forth, right? Photographers, everybody of that nature, right? The more you work with somebody, the more that you see their trade secrets. What are trade secrets? How do they market? How do they get their goods? How do they get their clients? How do they do what they do, right? Because this person that takes amazing pictures, how does he do that? Or he uses this particular software in this particular way. You know what I'm saying? That's a trade secret. I can't trademark it. I can't patent it. I can't copyright it, but I just keep it to myself. And the more you're working with me, I'm going to put a clause in there that states, if you learn any of my trade secrets, you're going to keep it quiet. So I can continue to own it, and we can continue to work together. And if you violate that, we're going to call Garry up. It's going to be a problem. You know what I'm saying? We're going to shut it down. So those are ways to protect your intellectual property. That's literal steps on how to get that done.
These are major keys right here. These are important things that as content creators, as videographers, photographers, these are things that it's important to have these type of conversations, right? It's important to be educated on these conversations. That's why I always, I got a young entrepreneur, Jordan, he's doing his thing right now. He's coming in the game, and hey, first thing I told him, hey, who's important to have on your team? He's like, somebody that know about finances. Somebody that know about law, get that business lawyer, get that CPA, get that banker, have conversations with them, really develop a strategy and a plan before starting that entity or that company. And then also know how to go about it when we're in collaborations, whether it's creating collaboration agreements and trade secrets, things that you mentioned. So really appreciate you being here. I'm not going to drag this thing on much longer, but I do want you to give a shout out, give a update on an event that you got coming up this Saturday.
It's going down. It's going down. So September 21st, this Saturday, was it 2:00? It's 2:00. We will be at the Content Factory. We're doing an Influencer Workshop 101. Right. So I do represent some influencers, and I know some influencers as well. And a lot of them just do not have legal representation. Right. But you guys need to build your business formation, get that done, get your taxes right as far as your tax structure, like we discussed as well, how to protect your intellectual property. You guys are coming up with all these catchphrases, very kind, very mindful, very demure. And then now you're crying on Instagram because somebody tried to take it from you. Right. Why did that happen? How do we get around that? Those different things. We're also big thing that I want to show everybody during this event as well is contracts. A lot of influencers are getting into major contracts with huge Fortune 500 companies, getting a bunch of money, right? But you have no idea what you're signing, right? So we're doing this event. We're going to actually go through 2 contracts to see what's going on, compare, contrast them, and where we find what I like to call points of negotiation, right? So you get into that room, you're like, well, I want this much money, I want that much money. That's not the only piece of negotiation that should be happening in that room. Because if it is, the other side is happy, you know? And we need to understand what a lot of different terms mean in order to protect ourselves, grow our brands, and also plan for the future, and so that we can adapt and what's the one I'm looking for? Adjust and adapt into different spaces, right? You might be starting off in comedy, but you can end up in apparel, right? You might be starting off in food reviews, you end up producing movies, right? But how did that transition happen? How do we protect our intellectual property? How do we protect our assets? How do we protect our money? How we pay Uncle Sam as least as possible, right? Under the law, and make things as smooth as possible. So if you're an influencer on any scale, right? You could be a mega influencer, a nano influencer, or you could be aspiring influencer. Come out to the event. We're going to share the flyer in the comments of this video as well.
Yeah. With that being said, man, that's Choose to Create Live. Thank you guys for watching. I shared it on my page. Y'all make sure y'all follow Garry Louima on his page as well, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, as well as First Step Legal.
Yes.
Right. Make sure you guys are following that. And this is the first step in Choose to Create Live right now. You know, we're gonna be back next month. The third Wednesday, we'll be doing this at the same time, 6:30, 7 o'clock ish. Nice. You know what I mean? We Caribbean folks, so you know, you got to give us a little, you know, little buffer time, you know. But I really appreciate everybody that was able to tune in. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comments. If you guys have anybody that you guys want us to bring on to the show, we'll be bringing entrepreneurs from all different walks of life, not just content creators. We will have some really great photographers and videographers and some really big time heavy hitters.
Let's get it. Yeah.
We going in the bag.
Yeah.
We going in the bag. So y'all stay tuned. We got some people that's gonna be coming through to Choose to Create Live, and y'all gonna really enjoy this. So Garry,
yes, sir.
Thank you for coming through.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And dropping them gems.
Yes.
On the good people.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you guys have any questions, make sure y'all reach out to them and connect with them. He'll be able to guide you and help you take that first step. So,
that's good.
Yeah.
All right,
peace out.
See you.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. We off.